He was born Bert McCloskey Cooper, but to the world, he was Calvin Lockhart, the celebrated stage and film star known for performing such memorable roles as Reverend Dickie O'Malley in the Chester Himes classic novel Silky
Never have
Slim.
so few owed so much to so many. Good night.
Biggie Smalls,
Mac. Dumb, old-fashioned, and out of style, but colorful.
Biggie, you out your territory. And I don't like it when people come into my town without paying their respect.
Well, we no longer consider this town as out of our territory.
and of course, Colonel Izzy in the Eddie Murphy classic film Coming to America. Calvin Lockhart was a leading man before the term became popular for black actors. On stage, film, and television, he commanded the room like no other. On this episode of Forgotten Hollywood, we examine the life of the extraordinary Calvin Lockhart. Born in 1934 on the islands of the Bahamas, Lockhart was the youngest of 8 to parents Eric and Minerva Cooper. Life on the tropical island was extremely tough in those days. Unemployment was high, and the few jobs that were available really didn't pay much. The tourism industry had not yet started, so this created a lot of tension and unrest throughout the island. Lockhart's father was a well-respected and popular tailor across the island. But just like any other business, survival was based on how much money its clients had to spend. So at the age of 18, Lockhart set out on his own and moved to the biggest city in America, New York. His plans were to become an electrical engineer. But after just 1 year, those plans were put on hold for good. Lockhart found a new passion, acting. He became involved in a YMCA theater group and trained under the legendary acting coach Uta Hagen. Hagen was a heavily sought-after acting coach in those days, and she willingly shared her skills with all. Her students included young actors who would go on to become some of the biggest names in Hollywood. Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Gene Wilder, and Faye Dunaway, to name just a few. Hagen provided classical training to them all, and Lockhart was an attentive student. But Hagen's life was also met with scandal. For 10 years, she was married to the famous Puerto Rican actor and director Jose Ferrer. Both allegedly had ties to the Communist Party and were ultimately blacklisted by Hollywood. But it was Hagen's secret and long-concealed romance with world-renowned actor, singer, and all-around Renaissance man Paul Robeson. The two met on the set of Othello. Robeson was 21 years her senior. Coincidentally, Hagen's husband was an actor in the same play, performing the role of the jealous friend to Othello, Iago. Needless to say, the affair ended her marriage. For Lockhart, finding good acting jobs was not easy. Black actors were consistently offered stereotypical roles that were degrading and dehumanizing. He wanted roles that spoke to the high esteem he had of himself. An intelligent man with good looks and charisma, he didn't want roles that belied his image or disappointed his family. To make ends meet, Lockhart drove a taxi cab part-time and operated a carpentry business, a skill he learned growing up in the Bahamas. But it was a chance meeting with a passenger in his cab that changed everything. Pulitzer Prize-winning writer Keta Fringe met Lockhart, and the two began discussing the movie industry and his passion for acting. Fringe was so impressed with Lockhart's self-assured confidence and arrogance, she immediately cast him in her stage play, The Cool World, written by novelist Warren Miller. Lockhart portrayed the character of Blood, a gang leader. It was his Broadway debut, and he gave a stunning performance according to the critics. But the show lasted for just 2 appearances. Shortly afterwards, Lockhart was chosen to replace legendary film actor Billy D. Williams for the part of Jimmy in the Broadway play A Taste of Honey, written by British-born playwright Sheila Delaney. The role was a bit controversial for the time. Lockhart's character was a sailor who seduces and impregnates a white girl, played by actress Joan Plowright. Obviously, for the 1960s, this was against cultural norms, more so in America than in Europe. A Taste of Honey also starred Murder, She Wrote actress Angela Lansbury in the lead role as the mother of the impregnated girl. Still frustrated with the lack of meaningful roles for black actors, Lockhart, who was very fluent in French, German, Spanish, and Italian, left the United States for Italy, where he opened a restaurant and started his own theater company, acting and directing. Not long after that, he then relocated to Germany, then to England, landing roles in many British television shows and films, including the 1968 suspense thriller Salt and Pepper, starring Sammy Davis Jr., and A Daisy and Aspic, starring a young Mia Farrow. Lockhart's small resume of performances was beginning to gain him recognition as an actor to be reckoned with. More scripts were coming. Another British-born writer and director, Michael Roney, took a chance to cast Lockhart in probably his first notable role on the silver screen. The movie was called Joanna.
A complaint has been lodged about a disturbance, sir. We've been told there's some fighting in your apartment. May I come in, sir?
No, man, you may not.
Gordon, what is it?
You go right back to your little police station, man. There's been no trouble, no disturbance, no nothing.
You his wife? How old are you?
I told you, man, mind your own business.
Don't, Gordon. I'm
Shut
18.
up. Now you clear out of here.
Well, I can just take a statement from you, and I'll go. I'll come in if I may, so we can do it in private.
Big shot, ain't you? Now you've done it.
Joanna was an interracial romance story set in London. Lockhart played the part of a nightclub owner who again seduces and impregnates the main character, a young white girl, played by the South African-born actress Genevieve Waite. But the movie was met with a lot of racial hostility, even from the start of production. And although the movie starred one of South Africa's own citizens, the country refused to show it and was equally angry with Waite for agreeing to take the role. South Africa's practice of apartheid prohibited the showing of the movie in its theaters. Troubled by the reaction from her own country, Waite went on to say if she and Lockhart were in a real-life romance in South Africa, the government would have definitely jailed her for dating a black man and would have done worse to him. And since political murder was the order of the day in South Africa at that time, the actress didn't think she could ever return. However, one noticeable double standard about the movie was the sister of Lockhart's character in the film, performed by Glenna Forster Jones, dated a white man played by Donald Sutherland. But this interracial fling didn't raise any alarms or any protests. No one said anything. Lockhart supposedly didn't like the script either. He actually walked off the set not once, but twice. However, he had to stay busy in order to stay relevant. Not long after Joanna, Lockhart was contractually obligated to do another film with Sony, Myra Breckinridge. This was a very ambitious effort of a project, casting many young stars at the time, some known and unknown, like Raquel Welch, Farrah Fawcett, and Tom Selleck. But the film was also a complete flop, commercially and critically. Not one good rating. The director received a lot of negative feedback. Raquel Welch was quoted as saying, "The only good thing about the movie were the clothes." But this didn't stop Lockhart from continuing his pursuit of the right film. Blockbuster or not, he knew there was a good project out there for him. It was just a matter of time. Then came the 1970s. Lockhart was in high demand, professionally and personally. In fact, in 1971, the British public declared Calvin Lockhart the world's sexiest man. So he never had a problem getting the girl, as they say. In fact, he was a ladies' man.
I'm going for a while.
Hi, baby.
Hi. Wake up.
After the divorce from his first wife, Lockhart started making plans for his second marriage. In 1972, his wife-to-be was the very beautiful Jamaican model Thelma Walters. But that too was a marriage that didn't last long. In 1978, the two went their separate ways after just 6 years. Lockhart wouldn't marry again until 1982. This time, his third bride was the British-born businesswoman Lynn Sloan. They were married in Lockhart's native Bahamas. As he explained it, the two lovebirds had met 14 years prior after he had promised to introduce Sloan to Academy Award winner Sidney Poitier. But Poitier never showed up. A few years later, the future couple would meet again, but this time they fell in love. Ultimately, just like his two previous marriages, this one ended just 5 years later. His last and final marriage took place in 1989 to Miss Jennifer Miles, the owner of a New York interior design company. Together, they had a son. From Lockhart's previous marriages, he had 2 sons and a daughter. But tragedy also struck the famed actor around the late 1970s when he suffered a heart attack upon finding out his son Leslie Lockhart had a terrible accident while under the influence of angel dust. According to reports and an exclusive interview with Jet magazine, his son had smoked a joint that was given to him by friends when suddenly he heard voices, which frightened him to eventually jump out a window, breaking all the bones in his feet. The elder Lockhart immediately raced to his son's aid. After his son recovered, Lockhart made it his life's mission to use his name and celebrity to bring attention to the scourge of drug addiction among young people. Lockhart participated in anti-drug addiction campaigns and even took some of the blame regarding his son's addiction. He believed his divorce from his son's mother contributed to the breakdown of the family structure. According to Lockhart, there were times when he had to travel to different parts of the world in search of respectable acting roles, leaving his family in Massachusetts or Spain while he auditioned or lived in faraway places. Lockhart eventually relocated his son Leslie to stay with him in Hollywood. Sadly, Lockhart's son Leslie passed away in 2009. Still in the 1970s, in Lockhart's next film, a project he didn't really want to do, but it was in a lead role, was the 1970s picture Halls of Anger, directed by Paul Bogart. Lockhart's character, Quincy Davis, is a former basketball star turned vice principal of an all-black high school which is forced to admit 60 white students. But this film was an accident waiting to happen. The racial stereotypes were obvious, along with the racial conflicts on the set. According to Lockhart, there were issues with the script from the very beginning, particularly with the way the black characters were presented. Lockhart wanted some of the parts of the storyline rewritten while other parts outright removed. The director refused, and this led to many heated exchanges and arguments on the set.
Vanilla ice cream.
And I'm gonna take me a big lick.
If any one of them niggas gives me any crap, I'll lay him out.
You do that, Leaky.
One disturbing scene in the movie was filmed while Lockhart was away from the set. It involved a group of black actresses stripping the clothes off a white actress while in the bathroom. The actress in question was Patricia Stitch, wife of former HBO boxing commentator Larry Merchant. The scene was controversial, and it created a lot of anxiety on the set, even before the actual filming, due to the unsubstantiated rumors that the black actresses had something more sinister planned. Upon finding out the scene was filmed and kept in the movie, Lockhart was quoted as saying, "This type of behavior was not a part of black people's culture, and it should not be in the film." The beautiful actress, Tanisha, known for her roles on film and television, and who played the part of Claudine in the movie, was also disappointed with the scene and dialogue. She was quoted as saying, "That scene where we're supposed to strip the white kid into John, I resented it, but that's Whitey's idea of us," unquote. This led to many racial confrontations on the set, particularly when Lockhart stated he overheard how much the director hated him. This was met with cheers and applause from many of the whites. Conflicts like these created the unfair reputation for Lockhart as an actor too difficult to work with. No matter the color or gender of an actor, having a reputation as too difficult to work with could potentially undermine anyone's career. But when a black actor is labeled too difficult to work with, it's the proverbial nail in the coffin. After reviewing the movie for myself, I could see how any black actor who is proud of his heritage and culture would feel offended at some of the scenes. The exaggerated stereotypes were painful to watch. Halls of Anger was also the feature film acting debut of Jeff Bridges. His performance was highly praised by the critics, including appearances by Rob Reiner as a high school student. Also performing a very prominent role in the film was acclaimed actor James A. Watson Jr. But Lockhart himself was in rare form, as to be expected. His acting was bar none, which led to a lead role in the Chester Himes best-selling novel Cotton Comes to Harlem, directed by stage and film great Ossie Davis. Filmed on location in Harlem, Lockhart played the role of Reverend Dickie O'Malley, an unscrupulous preacher who dupes his followers to purchase shares of his ship named The Black Beauty. The movie resonated well with viewers and critics, grossing 5 times its initial investment. Black audiences found the movie to be very funny and were happy to see a largely black cast perform without the usual buffoonery that typically followed black movies. Some of the biggest names in black Hollywood were in the movie. The naturally funny and hilarious Red Fox as Uncle Bud, and the very beautiful and lovely Judy Pace as Iris, Godfrey Cambridge as Grave Digger Jones, and Raymond St. as Coffee Ed Johnson. Cotton Comes to Harlem was very well received in America, especially globally, particularly in Asian countries. But when it was exported to France, the title, surprisingly, was changed to the Uncle Tom Caper. This was rather odd. Cotton Comes to Harlem in French would have read in translation, Le Cousin Vivant et Harlem. This was obviously a detective story, so it was understood why the word caper was added to the French version. But why was Uncle Tom added? What was wrong with the original title? And what did Uncle Tom mean to the French public? Those questions still have not been answered. A few more meaningful projects were offered to Lockhart as the 1970s rolled on, especially from another hugely successful bohemian actor and director who was by far one of the biggest names in Hollywood, Sidney Poitier. With Lockhart, Poitier recruited a very talented actor who took his craft seriously and deserved more promising roles. One of those roles was in the cult classic film Uptown Saturday Night, starring and directed by Poitier, with Bill Cosby, Harry Belafonte, Richard Pryor, Rosalind Cash, Paula Kelly, Lee Chamberlain, and many other accomplished black actors. Lockhart portrayed the character of Silky Slim, a smooth-talking but no-nonsense gangster who robs the private and underground nightclub casino owned by Madame Zenobia, played by Lee Chamberlain's character. During the robbery, Lockhart's character delivers one of the most memorable lines in the movie.
Never have so few owed so much to so many.
Uptown Saturday Night was such a hit in the theaters, Lockhart was tapped again for another Poitier-directed film, Let's Do It Again. Also including Bill Cosby, but this time added to the list, was John Amos, Jimmy Walker, Denise Nicholas, Lee Chamberlain, Ossie Davis, and a host of other black actors, some known and unknown. In the movie, Lockhart was Biggie Smalls, a major player and gangster who competed in the underworld against Kansas City Mac, played by the incomparable John Amos. But in the movie, they both were eventually outwitted by a clever hypnosis trick orchestrated by Poitier and Cosby's character. Many years later, the name Biggie Smalls was used as the stage name by legendary Brooklyn, New York rapper Christopher Wallace. Rumor has it Lockhart himself filed a lawsuit against the beloved Brooklyn artist to stop him from using the name, which led to Wallace creating the new name, the notorious B.I.G. But court records are very limited on this topic. Lockhart didn't own the name Biggie Smalls. The writers and/or studio producers owned the name. Therefore, Lockhart wouldn't have the ownership rights to file a lawsuit. Maybe the studio executives, but not the actor. As an example, that would be like Al Pacino telling the Ghetto Boys that Brad Jordan would have to change his name from Scarface. This is highly unlikely. Toward the end of the 1970s, feature film roles were becoming few and far between for Lockhart, as it was for many other black actors. Within that 10-year span, Lockhart appeared in less than only 20 movies. Such talent gone to waste. The lack of silver screen opportunities led Lockhart to accept offers on network television. But for an actor of his stature and accomplishment, good looks and intelligence, this was arguably beneath him. One role he accepted was on the situation comedy classic show Good Times. He played the generous and well-dressed gambler known as Cousin Raymond, bearing gifts to the whole Evans family, including to his favorite cousin, Pookie Poo, known on the show as Florida Evans, played by the very talented actress Esther Rolle. The performance Lockhart gave was stunning, and it stands out as among one of the most watched episodes, particularly after John Amos left the show. But what a lot of people don't know is that particular episode was co-written by another famous actor, director, and writer, Bill Duke. We should all remember Bill Duke. He's been in many movies, but my favorite of all was the character he played in Car Wash, Dwayne, although he preferred the name Abdullah. Lockhart also had recurring roles on the police crime drama Starsky and Hutch as Alan Angel Walter, and on the primetime soap opera Dynasty, he was cast as Jonathan Lake. the love interest for Diane Carroll's character. Lockhart appeared in just 9 episodes.
Your Majesty, I am Colonel Izzy, and today, with your blessing, I offer my daughter to your son.
Probably the biggest and most successful film Lockhart has ever appeared in was the Eddie Murphy classic movie Coming to America. Although his role was small, with very few lines, his contribution was unforgettable. He played the character of Colonel Izzy, father to Armani Izzy, played by the very beautiful actress Vanessa Bell Calloway, the intended bride to Prince Akeem. If you have seen the movie, I'm sure you know why the barking dog is in the background. To Eddie Murphy's credit, he has always had the reputation for casting pioneers in some of his film projects. Casting Lockhart was no different, just as casting John Amos and James Earl Jones in the same film. But in the sequel of Coming to America Part 2, the role of Colonel Izzy is reprised by Wesley Snipes, who is now General Izzy, which was a smart move. One would think, with Lockhart coming off of the success of Coming to America, especially for him known as a great actor, roles would have been plentiful and endless. But this couldn't be further from the truth. American cinema was very unkind to Lockhart. After a few more roles in film projects, he decided to pack his bags and return to his native Bahamas to help establish a strong and vibrant film industry over there. This would help the locals pursue their own dreams for filmmaking and acting. He knew from personal experience the door of opportunity for black actors stays shut, and it only opens for just a few. For about 10 years after Lockhart returned home, he pretty much lived a reclusive life, absent from public view. His last and final film was Rain, written and directed by Maria Goldwyn. Filmed in the Bahamas, it was one of the first feature film productions to be shot entirely by citizens of the Bahamas, something Lockhart had always wanted. Sadly, on March 29, 2007, the world lost the brilliant actor to stroke-related complications. He was just 72 years of age. When the news first broke, it took the film industry by surprise. Words of praise and condolences came from all over, including the former Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the Honorable Perry Christie, who remarked he was saddened by the passing of the internationally acclaimed actor who followed in the trailblazing footsteps of other Bohemian greats like Bert Williams and Sir Sidney Poitier. The Prime Minister continued by saying Lockhart was a proud and committed personality who touched the lives of so many. He will be sorely missed. But it was the words of Sidney Poitier that really shined the light on what the loss of Calvin Lockhart really meant to the film industry. Poitier stated, "Calvin had wonderful range as an actor. He really had enormous promise. I don't know why he was not more utilized, because he was so good." The Academy Award actor continued to say, "As a matter of fact, Calvin had movie star qualities. He was a very handsome man. His impact on the screen was striking, and his work was highly praised." Unquote. Those words were the words of a Hollywood great, Sidney Poitier, indicting the industry for overlooking the greatness of a peer professional who had the potential and the talent to reach heights probably far greater than many of us could have ever imagined. As I think on what Sidney Poitier said, in my opinion, Calvin Lockhart's star was dimmed before it could truly shine, robbing us of inspiration through his example of artistry and craftsmanship. When Hollywood did not give him a chance, not only was he denied, we were denied. As I was doing my research for this project, it made me wonder, why would a talented and charismatic actor be unfairly ostracized and maligned by Hollywood? And what I discovered is Calvin Lockhart repeatedly questioned and challenged studio bosses for the stereotypical roles given to black actors. He despised the routine fashion black actors were portrayed through the media as pimps, prostitutes, and dope pushers. He even wanted Black America to launch a full-scale boycott of national media.
I'm going to suggest to you that we begin a campaign of non-cooperation with the media. A campaign of non-cooperation with the media. I'm suggesting a return to the non-violent process of Dr. Martin Luther King. So let's all decide, as a matter of principle, that we will not buy a cable subscription for a period of 3 months and not go to one movie for a period of 3 months. And let's see what happens.
Lockhart also wanted black filmmakers to work together to become more independent in the film industry. His response to a question regarding that is what follows.
There are two kinds of people in this workforce in America today. They are called the people who who create jobs, and the ones who look for a job. And until you get to the point where you can start creating a job, you are still the odd man out. Your community is still controlled by some white man somewhere. You don't even produce popcorn. And that is an unfortunate state of affairs. I don't know of any other group in this country who allows somebody else to walk in and control their community, and you do it. We do it. It takes no great genius to pop popcorn. That's a fact. And we do not even produce popcorn. It's about time you wake up and realize as long as some other man produces the means and the services by which your family lives, that man is your wife's husband and not you.
And Lockhart also spoke about how Blaxploitation films could have actually started a black-owned and black-operated film industry.
We were well on our way when we were doing the films that people call black exploitation. But what we don't seem to realize is that all film is exploitation. John Wayne, what do you call John Wayne, you know? But I don't know why we were singled out by organizations like, unfortunately, like the NAACP and the Urban League, and they actually picketed our films, which was a wrong thing to do, because they should have let us go through growing pains. At least we were learning something. And perhaps today we would have had some sort of viable film industry going. I think every black actor in Hollywood today is aware of this.
I suggest to you all to treat yourself to some vintage Calvin Lockhart film projects. Everything he has ever appeared in is available through many streaming services. Stay tuned for scenes for the next episode of Forgotten Hollywood.
Come on out here, baby! We're looking for Ernie Harris. Look, if you happen to see Ernie Harris, you tell him if he don't come up with the cash, the big public relations man is going to have a nice, private funeral.
Many of us knew his paintings before we knew his name, or even his face. The paintings were different, brilliant, very exciting to look at, unlike anything ever seen before in the mainstream art world. His artistry was meticulous and unique. It captured the lives of black people with very distinct images, elongated limbs, and closed eyes. which was his signature calling card. Probably his most popular painting, The Sugar Shack, featured on the closing credits of the television situation comedy Good Times, and also on the cover of Marvin Gaye's 1976 soul classic hit, I Want You. Ernie Barnes was the people's artist. He was the people's painter. On this episode of Forgotten Hollywood, we examine the life of the incomparable Ernest Eugene Barnes Jr.